All right, ladies and gentlemen, the 2025 season is getting ready to kick off. We had Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch meet with local media today to give a bunch of updates. Most of the pertinent updates are regarding some injury things, but the 49ers did sign a new player, and he goes by the name Equanimous St. Brown, brother of Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's a guy who has a decent amount of experience in this league, has been, some moderately productive at places like Green Bay or Chicago. He's a big body type wide receiver, great length, and he kind of fits that Jauan Jennings mold. And then obviously with the addition of Equanimous St. Brown and mentioning Jauan Jennings, we have an interesting update in regard to him. Apparently, according to Kyle Shanahan, Jauan Jennings has not formally asked for a trade. Jennings did report to training camp and passed his physical, and he is expected to practice tomorrow. So that's a good development. Obviously, we heard a couple weeks ago that Jauan Jennings had requested a trade via Adam Schefter. That type of information typically comes via the agent in that type of context. But Kyle Shanahan pushes back on the narrative that Jauan formally asked for a trade. And as a result, Jennings is in camp, passes physical, and is expected to practice tomorrow. That would tell me that they've made some headway in regards to getting a contract done, to the point where if he is going to practice tomorrow, that would, to me, signal that they're actually closer to getting a deal done. More of a hold-in situation than a hold-out. I would imagine they're still negotiating a contract, but again, we don't know for sure. That's just my assumption based on the information that we've gathered. So good news, Jauan Jennings will be practicing tomorrow because, as we know, Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Aiyuk won't be available to start practice, but we also have some updates on them as well. From everything that we've heard, Brandon Aiyuk is trending in the right direction, but the 49ers, quote, are not anywhere close to having a concrete timeline for his return from knee injury, which honestly is phenomenal expectation setting. I think when you have an injury as serious as Brandon Aiyuk, fans, media, they want to know a date. Very similar to this Ricky Pearsall situation, which I'll touch on in a second. But they want to know a date. When are they going to come back? And then that's where they set the expectation. If it goes beyond that, it can become an issue in regards to perceived information, what have you. So the fact that they have not presented a concrete timeline for Brandon Aiyuk, I think is more just of setting an expectation than anything else. They don't want to put a date to it. They don't want to put a timeline to it and have people keeping tabs. Oh, it's week 3. He's not available. You lied to us. Example. So I really do think that BA is trending in the right direction, and I don't necessarily believe that it is something that's necessarily a bad thing. I think some people have seen that report and are kind of freaking out. I know that the current expectation is Aiyuk will eventually be placed on reserve PUP, which would have him miss the 4 weeks of the season, which would have him eligible to return for week 5. But we still don't know about that. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And as I mentioned, we have an update on Ricky Pearsall, along with Ben Bartch and Yetur Gross-Matos. Ricky and Yetur were put on PUP. Ben Bartch was put on NFI. According to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, neither one of those guys are expected to miss an extended period of time at training camp, but they are expected to not be available at the start of training camp. But from the reports that we've heard, it's not a serious injury for any of those guys, and they are expected to return somewhat soon within training camp. So that's good news, especially for guys like Ben Barch, who is slated to be your starting left guard. The 49ers are very thin at offensive line. I would have to imagine that they would kick Spencer Burford over to left guard in that scenario, or potentially Nick Sikel. I think those are your next guys up from that regard, because Dominic Pooney is, I believe, slated to stay on the right side as a right guard. With the situation with Jake Brendel, he will probably stay at center. And, does Connor Colby, the 49ers 7th round draft pick, compete for that position? Probably not, as a rookie. So, and maybe guys like Drake Nugent get a shot at left guard potentially, but obviously not an ideal scenario where the 49ers are thin on the offensive line, dealing with an injury to their expected starting left guard to start training camp. And as well as we know, Trent Williams typically doesn't practice all that much in training camp. So who are their swing tackles? Andre Dillard, who they signed, is also on the PUP. So they're starting training camp thin on the offensive line. So we'll see how that situation progresses. And as we know, it's very challenging to find quality offensive linemen, especially on the open market. So we'll see how that situation continues to progress. But overall, nothing too earth-shattering coming out of the press conferences and kind of the first day, I guess, if you will, of 49ers training camp, because obviously they still have to practice tomorrow. I'm excited to get out to Santa Clara, excited to kind of get back to producing some more consistent content and being able to get eyes on these players, some for the first time and others just seeing how they've progressed throughout the offseason, comparing them to last training camp. So I'm really looking forward to being back out there and being able to get back to evaluating. Some non-update updates: Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, both in attendance, and both are ready and healthy and good to go. So that's obviously a big sign, especially for Christian McCaffrey and everything that he dealt with last year. So overall, most of the updates that seemed to come out today were positive. Nothing too surprising. And I don't see a situation where there was a ton of unfortunate information or anything like that. So overall, positive updates, which is, especially in regards to injuries, where we want to be at the start of training camp. Obviously, we'll have to work through some injuries, but we'll continue to see how it goes from this point moving forward. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below, and as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.